Get ready for a great session. It looks like the participants that were in the waiting room, hopefully you all are having a wonderful day. Welcome high school students, welcome HR people, welcome recruiters, welcome teachers and educators. With us on today's broadcast, we have Eddie Ferron. And so we'll talk about Eddie in just a real quick moment. Today, as well as every Thursday through the end of the school year, the Power Up IT Minnesota program, as well as through Minnesota STEM Partnership and Minnesota State Web Demos and some other people supporting this effort, are going to bring to you talented professionals that actually do real IT technology jobs, maybe with a little bit of twist of engineering and arts and math and science. But the reality of it is we're focused in on technology and giving you the opportunity to learn about careers in technology. So we're bringing real people to the table so that you have a chance at the end of this session to ask questions in the chat session. And like you've experienced now being back in school, when you're in the classroom, please keep your microphones muted and prefer if you have your cameras off. If you choose to have your camera on, that's fine, but that is totally up to you. And we prefer if you keep your camera off, if that's so what you choose for privacy reasons. Minnesota STEM Partnership also is coordinating a number of different coordinating with a number of different organizations to try to find activities for you to participate in. There are many programs out there like Code Savvy, Technovation, Aspirations, and others that are starting to turn into virtual organizations and offer virtual opportunities. So if you have a great opportunity that's available that you've heard about, please put it in the chat and we'll make an announcement at the end of the session. So hopefully everybody has had a chance to get settled into their seat so that we can introduce our guest speaker. And so I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Edward Ferron. And Edward, or Eddie as I prefer to call him, and I'm going to do a screen share real quick. And I'm going to actually let you guys see my whole desktop. Pretty amazing here. All right, so nothing fabulous. I just have some basic stuff. But the first thing that you'll want to do whenever you see a guest speaker or somebody with a title like this that is pretty high level, pretty ominous, he's what is called a C-level professional, which means that he works and deals with the highest level of executives at a company and his own company and many other major organizations that he'll share with us. On the screen, you should see a very basic LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn.com all the time to research people. Now, they can see that you're looking at them because if you go in and they look at who viewed their profile, if you don't have your security settings set, they could see that, you know, Michael Wolf looked at his profile. However, I use LinkedIn to get a flavor to understand what that person is about, what they do. You can certainly Google him or go to LinkedIn and find him for yourself. But you can see that he has many highlights. You can actually see that he's dealing with a lot of major companies that many of them are located here or have large regional offices here. There is a very great About Us section on LinkedIn that you can learn about Eddie and find out like what are these things. So as he talks, hopefully you've been able to do this and look up his information ahead of time, but you know, it looks like his expertise, he's big in the cloud, enterprise application architect. So in terms of where I started at and maybe where you'll start at is coming right out of high school or in high school, you know, we did all those same things that you're doing at a very, you know, small level. We started to learn to code, figured out what hashtags were, or whatever coding pathway that you took, or maybe a hardware pathway. He didn't start, and you can ask him later on, but he didn't necessarily start at the beginning, as an architect at the end. So we're going to ask him a few questions about that. Maybe he has some activities out here and his experience and the companies that he's worked with. Another question that we want you to start thinking about before we come into these sessions is like, well, what is a chief architect, right? So my old trusty dusty Google, go out to Google and just type in what is a technology chief architect. And so you can do this for yourself. Google is open to everybody, but it looks like pretty much what we just described. In information technology, a chief architect is the C-level, the highest level executive whose job is to closely work with all of the IT functions across the entire organization. So all of the enterprise architects, all those high-level people report to the single person that is responsible for delivery and execution of the technology for that company. And then another area you might want to look at is if you want to set a goal to become an architect, chief architect, or an enterprise architect, IT architect, application architect. But the averages for the national average range from $125,000 to $168,000 a year. So we're bringing you some pretty heavy-duty horsepower here. However, these are just averages, right? So he could make a lot more, he could make less, but he's probably making pretty good money. So we'll be professional and not ask him exactly how much he makes. But safe to say he's in a range where he's making that strong six figures. Okay. So without any further ado, I'm going to go back and unshare my screen. And we're going to talk to Eddie a little bit and see what this next 20 minutes or so is going to bring us. So again, if you have questions for the speaker, please be sure to enter them in chat. We also have Lindsay. Lindsay is our coordinator. Lindsay is going to be the one that's going to be corresponding with you in chat, and she's going to ask those questions at the end, unless you so choose to unmute your mic. So before we get into questions and all that kind of stuff, we're going to jump right into introducing Eddie. So, Mr. Ferron, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Michael. Thanks for asking.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, thank you for taking your time away from your very important and busy job to talk with the students. Most of our the purpose of this is for high school students to get an idea of like really cool people that are living right here in the Twin Cities that do these really incredible jobs and make a lot of money. And then those that do the entry-level jobs as well. So we're glad that you're here to kick off our professional development career talks.
Excellent.
So Eddie, I tried my best to talk about what you do for a living. So do you want to give us and share a little bit about what you do for a living, like your title and like what that responsibility really is for you?
Sure, yeah. So today I run a consulting firm, Ferron Technologies, which I founded 2.5, almost 3 years ago. And really we're focused on helping customers and all the common applications that you get today or you use today, like you may use an application to engage online banking with your favorite bank, or you may use applications to pick up prescriptions, for example. And so we work with those companies that build these applications for both consumers and the enterprise to make sure that you have the very best experience when you use those applications. Today, companies know that you have a wide variety of choices. If you don't like one app or one store, you can quickly switch over to another app. And so we help companies protect their customer base by monitoring those applications and developing great user experiences when you download and use those apps.
Fantastic. So you don't build the apps, you basically coordinate all the IT people, or can you talk a little bit about how you deliver those, experiences, if you will?
Sure. So there are certain customers where we actually do help build the application. So we'll do everything from gather the requirements, design the application, work with teams to actually implement and build and deploy that application as well. But lately, we've had a lot of business come in where customers are asking us to monitor and troubleshoot those applications when they're having performance issues. If you go to your favorite website to maybe purchase a product, for example, if it takes forever for that web page to load or for that application to allow you to purchase whatever it is you're trying to purchase, again, you're likely to abandon that experience and move on to their competitor. And so we help customers monitor those applications and troubleshoot where and why they're having performance issues.
Yeah, you actually pointed out, kind of triggered a thought, was that performance management is a big thing, and site monitoring and all that is really important, especially in today's world where now, due to the COVID-19 situation, unfortunately, everybody's virtual.
Right.
But in reality, the applications that you help deliver and check performance on, or maybe that one aspect of it, are much like we are, right? We're all over the place, and then you got to figure out why is there a 2-second delay on Zoom? And I think, I was laughing because, I didn't want the kids or my mom to be streaming music and playing Netflix and all that. That's kind of a form of performance, monitoring, where, I already know that if you're downloading videos on my little rinky-dink broadband, then I know I'm going to slow down on my Zoom video, right? Is that the basic concept?
That certainly is a concept. We'd help figure out that it was perhaps a family member downloading too much content on the internet. And when you really think about it, across all generations and even across the current workforce today, everything is an app. All right. If I want to engage in anything, if I want to order my favorite sandwich from a restaurant, if
Yeah.
I want to order a product for my home or even furniture, everyone has an app or a website where I can do that. And for companies to make money, they really have to protect those experiences because the world is becoming more and more virtual. The current situation in the world today only highlights that even more so.
Yeah. So what did you have how did you get to where you're at? Like, what jobs did you have is one question. And then also two, if you want to maybe out of those jobs, focus in on one that was your favorite along
Mhm.
that way, if you don't
Sure.
mind.
So a little bit about my background, I guess, is when I came out of college, I graduated from a college in Atlanta, so Atlanta, Georgia, and I was recruited to an insurance company that is now known as Travelers Insurance. It was a different name when I was recruited. But shortly after that, I started consulting in the consulting business. And then I went to work for Microsoft for about 10 years, where I worked on a number of projects right here in Minnesota, including building the Microsoft Technology Center, the very first one here in Minnesota. And so I helped build that facility where there's a plethora of Microsoft technology on display, everything from consumer technology like advanced Xbox,
Huh.
technology used every day from your computer like Windows, all the way up to Azure and cloud compute. So I worked for them for about 10 years, ran the technology center also in Philadelphia as well, moved out there for a little while. And then I worked for a company called App Dynamics, which is now owned by Cisco,
Hmm.
where I got into what we call performance monitoring today. So that's just a little bit about some of the places I've worked. In terms of a favorite job, running JM Ferron Technologies is my favorite job by far. It's helping to fulfill a vision and a passion of mine that I really didn't know I had until much later in life, and really kind of carving out um, my own path in the market. So this by far is my favorite job. My
Yeah.
hardest working job, but it's my favorite.
So we'll just trigger on this real quick. Like, if you were a high school student in like 10th grade, knowing that you're now an entrepreneur, it's your favorite job, you have a passion for it. And a lot of our young people have like these super incredible ideas to build things and be their own boss. Um, what classes, like, is there anything that you would advise them to make sure that they at least consider focusing in on while they're in high school so that they're better prepared when they graduate?
Sure. In terms of classes, I mean, really, you have to find something to be passionate about, something that you really enjoy, and focus there because oftentimes the thing that you're passionate about, somewhere in life, in society, someone has a problem with that. And when you match up your passion with a problem, that creates great opportunity for you. So if you're into technology, into computers or robotics, I mean, look for those classes and focus in on them, and make those classes your passion. Really work to excel at them and go the extra mile, because that's an investment in yourself, right? That's what you really want to be known for, right? And I guess another way to say that is, what do you want to be known for?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of focus and energy that is going to start to evolve, especially now with things like, people having to stay in and consuming more electricity potentially, or at home stuff, solar, renewable energy. I've heard a lot of the feedback I've gotten is, the social impact side of it, yes, but also environments, the environmental civil engineering focused apps and activities. So yeah, no, that's pretty cool. So in high school, did you have any, did you do anything in high school, after school activities or clubs, or share a little bit about what your high school experience was like, if you don't mind?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Kind of
So I'll answer that question, and I'll share just another small, I guess, piece of advice here. Is in high school, I was really attracted to computer programming, and I worked and excelled and spent time and invested in really learning everything about the computer that I could learn. Right, the hardware, why commands did certain things, and this is before we had Google, and it was easy to just search, but I read the manual. That's another big key element, is read, 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 and read beyond Google and the headline. Find a book. If you don't like reading, subscribe to something like audible.com, where you can at least listen to the book. Reading will really step up your game and differentiate you from others who don't read. And there are a lot of people who don't read. Googling is not reading. Reading the headline is not reading. You really have to get into the chapters, get into the substance, because that's where a lot of knowledge is really, I want to say, buried or hidden, but you got to go uncover that knowledge. So I read a lot about computer programming. I took every computer programming class there is. The one piece that I did want to just kind of share with the audience here is, in STEM and in the technology field, there's often this misnotion of, if I'm not a computer programmer or a network or into hardware, into the very technical, the most technical components, maybe the technology field isn't for me. The technology field needs everyone, right? It needs everyone. It needs people who are good at accounting. It needs people who understand and who cares about medicine and the medical field, because you may have a programmer who understands everything about creating a program, but they need the knowledge from the professionals, like the doctors or the medical professionals or the scientists, to help figure out how to program or how to get the computer to produce the results that someone's looking for to solve a problem. So the technology field needs artistic people. Who wants to go and use a website or an application that looks terrible, right? So it needs people who are really good at graphics and design and art. So again, it's a field where we can use skill sets from every walk of life.
Yeah, very good. So I started thinking about too, like just a pure education path. You said you went to college in Atlanta, but today there's been a lot of conversation about 4-year degrees versus 2-year degrees versus getting certifications. And without, prejudicing the witness, what is your opinion on those 3 categories of pursuing it, post-secondary education, or self-study, I guess, is the other way, right? Self-study is kind of independent of all those other 3.
Yeah. Well, college, and I went to college, and I'll be really upfront. School was a struggle for me, but I really forced myself to complete and get my bachelor's degree. Right? I was not a stellar student. just to be really frank with you. And not stellar from a behavioral point of view. I mean, it just, I struggled with studying and academics. But again, I forced myself to get my 4-year degree. And what I've learned, having other siblings as well that some have many degrees, and a couple of my siblings have no degree, is whatever you are striving, first you have to set the goal on what you want to do. And then your education, you need to make sure that your education is actually going to work for you. I know people with degrees in the same field that I have with my same degree that are not working in their field, for example. And so I think of the degree or the certification like a key. If that key is not going to unlock the door that you want to go through, then really you got to figure out what the right key is. Some opportunities require master's degree, and I got to figure out, or you have to figure out, is this opportunity what I want to do? Well, then I need to go get the credentials to be able to do it. In terms of certifications and degrees, really just it depends on what you're applying to. And in anything that you got to do, once you set a goal, you got to be consistent, even if you don't like it. If there's no owning my own company doesn't mean that I don't work any harder. You know, being your own boss means you're going to work just as hard, sometimes twice as hard. So I don't know, it's kind of rambling a little bit there, but that's kind of my thoughts on degrees. They have to match what you're trying to do.
I like that. That's well said, and that's a great way of leading into that. Is, you know, why would you spend all that time in a 4-year degree? And we hear that story all the time. I think that's why I asked that question. Is many people come out of college with a 4-year degree or pursuing a 4-year degree, you know, because we don't spend enough time coaching the kids in high school to pursue their passion, right? So one of the other philosophies that we've tried to promote with Power Up IT is just like, I guess I hate to try to act all young and everything, but you got to have a side hustle, right? So even though let's say that you are working in a certain area, or you are maybe even pursuing some type of certification or something, it doesn't mean that you can't also learn and do something else, right? So for instance, I know people that came out, like you said, they have degrees, but then while they're working on these jobs, they're also continuing to get their education because they realize, oh, now I need to, you know, I got a 4-year degree in let's say math, but I really don't want to be a math teacher, but they want to be a computer programmer. So they go and do like a coding boot camp, or maybe they learn HTML, or maybe for their own side business, lawn mowing service, whatever, they build a website, right? It's a very natural progression for students and adults even that get back into the workforce. So kind of random add on there, but so Eddie, with all this, you know, responsibility that you have at your job, and knowing that, you know, pursue your passion and actually make sure that you're find something that you can actually put to work. Is there any additional advice that you can give to like a high school student that relates to pursuing specifically an architecture type job? So like if you had to tell, you know, my son to be an architect at a high level, do this, this, and this, and it's going to take X number of years. For example, being a MD, a medical doctor, I think that's pretty common knowledge that you go to 4-year pre-med, then you go to then you go to residency. But to finish a MD is like, what, 8 years, 10 years, 6 years, whatever it is, but it's pretty well prescribed. But even though it may not be linear, share your opinion on what would a person going into college have to make a choice do, and how long would it take roughly to be a chief architect or an architect? Trick question. Sorry, I didn't mean.
That's fine. What would a person going into college have to do to be a chief architect? There are many types of jobs and career paths, and I'll start off with at least talking about 2 of them. One of the types of job or career path is being a specialist, right? Being an expert, being the person that's known for any given topic, right? You're the expert at that topic. And those are very well paying jobs in their respected fields and respected professions. And being an architect, especially an IT architect, that takes the exact opposite path. That's really a path of wanting to know enough about everything so you can see the big picture, right? So you can see how everything fits together. And so if you're going to take a path where you say, I want to be an architect, then it's really investing time in understanding how everything works, right? How the hardware works, how the network works, how the computer programs work, how to optimize those computer programs. And another very important piece is understanding how people engage with that experience, whether it's your network bandwidth, how is that going to impact the person ultimately consuming that technology, whether you're building a website, a mobile app. And so it's really understanding the customer as well. And so the architect looks at all of the pieces and figures out how to design a solution, and then how to work with all of the different specialists on making sure that solution comes together. Going into college, if you're looking to be an architect, get as much exposure as you can to everything relevant to that particular field. And that will make you ready to have a well-rounded conversation and be a well-rounded professional. I believe recruiters will seek out people who can talk across a spectrum of topics at any given point in time and still keep it focused on the end result.
Very good. So in about 2 seconds, we'll ask for questions from the audience via chat. No, that's real good. I'm going to ask a little bit, Lindsay, I don't know, has any questions come in from the chat line yet?
Yeah, we have one question here, Mr. Ferron. They're asking what your day-to-day looks like.
Sure, lots of meetings. So my day-to-day, for the most part, looks like, and I'll keep it very focused on my work day-to-day. I mean, things are certainly different today with the lockdowns that are occurring across the country and across the world. But my day-to-day, for the most part, really, and actually I'll expand it beyond that. I get up and I give 30 minutes to myself. I focus on me. That may be a 15-minute workout. It may be 10 minutes really just kind of thinking through my day and planning my activities and making sure that I know what my calendar and my schedule looks like. And so you'll develop a wake-up routine and develop a wake-up routine that isn't distracted, that really allows you to focus on you. Give yourself some time. That's the first thing. The second thing is, generally speaking, customers like to load up meetings early in the morning, so I'm doing a number of conference calls, and I'm really, at that point, it's just not about doing conference calls. Here's something that I would say is really key to success. On those calls, be a good listener, right? Listen more than you talk. I know in this particular segment, I'm doing a lot of talking, but really listen for what people are interested in, what motivates people, what people are frustrated with, because you can use all of that information to your advantage, right? So during those conference calls, I'm doing as much listening as possible. That's just making you more intelligent about the audience you're engaging with. After that, I'm really kind of mid-morning, afternoon, I'm really focused on the action items and tasks. I'm trying to get things done, right? So out of all that listening, there's some tasks, there's some action items. It may be helping a customer troubleshoot a particular problem with an application. I get that a lot. Troubleshooting and performance management, that's kind of what a lot of companies know me for, is when they're having a problem with an app, they call me, and I help them find where that problem may be. Maybe in a database, maybe in their network, maybe in their application code. And then toward the end of the day, I'm really trying to develop a summary and a wrap up. So when I wake up the next morning, I have my agenda set.
Very good. So Lindsay, any other questions about his career and education that came in on the chat line?
Yeah, so we have two more. The first is, do you have any mentors that have helped you along the way?
I do. So from graduating college all the way up to this very day, I actually have several mentors. And I say several, 3 people that I call a mentor today. And they have different walks of life. They're in different areas of life. Having a mentor, no matter if you're a CEO, a chief architect, a developer, a high school student, or a college student, is invaluable. I am a big believer that all feedback is good feedback, even the feedback that I don't like. It helps me evaluate where I am in life and business. And so that's a very long answer. The answer is absolutely, I have mentors. I'm a big believer in that.
Okay, and the second part to that question is, how did you get mentors and why did you choose them?
Sure. So some of the mentors took an interest in me, and as I examined their life and kind of looked at where they were coming from and understood their background, I look for mentors that help me with gaps in my skill set and my life. At one point in my career, I became a sales engineer, and one of my mentors was a sales executive. And I wasn't trained to be a sales engineer. I didn't know anything about sales. I just knew a lot about technology. And the reason this particular mentor picked me is because he saw I was passionate about technology. Another key item is passion. Passion is attractive. If you're passionate about something, it will attract opportunity. It will attract money when you're passionate about something. So that sales executive saw that I was passionate, and honestly, he mistook that passion for skill. And I realized quickly I don't have sales skills. I'm really passionate about technology and computers. And so I took him on as a mentor, and he helped me round out my ability to be a really great sales engineer. And that paid off in spades. So kind of in summary, I look for people who have something to offer me. I really didn't need a mentor in computer programming. I was passionate about that. I was already investing in myself there. I need a mentor in other areas in my life where I was not as skillful or not as polished or well-rounded.
Any other questions, Lindsay?
Yeah, one last question. Someone wanted to know, how valuable is the CompTIA A+ certification as a beginner?
Depends on what you're doing. If you're looking for a job that either lists that as a requirement, or if you are passionate about, I believe the CompTIA A tests a lot on hardware knowledge and PC and computer knowledge. If you're looking to get a job, and I'm hesitant to name certain brands and certain companies here, but if you're looking to get a job in that area, then go get that certification. And now, it's not necessarily that you put that certification first. Put what you learned from the certification, right? So and apply that to the interview. The certification on a resume will speak for itself, but what you learned and how you apply it and how you can talk about it, that's where it turns into something valuable, something more valuable. Because if you think about it, lots of people have that cert. What makes your certification unique? And it's what you learn, how you apply it, and how you can market and talk about your certification skills.
Great answer. Lindsay, any last questions come in before I ask Mr. Ferron the final and third category of questions about lifestyle and what he does with all that money he makes?
Nope, that was it for the questions.
Well, I love that answer about CompTIA because I've always tried to figure out how to position that. But, you know, like you said, CompTIA, if you can get a job and that's why you're doing it, make sure you know, that's not, there are people that love hardware. My son, youngest son is one. He is not A+ certified, but he, you know, I'm almost embarrassed to say he should have really got A+ certification and moved in that pathway because he could take stuff apart, put it back together. And, you know, but A+ certification will get you in that door if that job does require it. A lot of help desk and entry-level jobs.
So Michael, can I share one, can I share something around that?
Yeah, absolutely.
The certification, the degree, this may be a little controversial. Some parents may come after me for this. The certification and the degree are great tools. Again, I have a degree, and you know, I wouldn't go back and undo it for the world. More importantly, in my humble opinion, is the relationships you build. Your relationships may end up taking you much further than your degree. Because again, pick a degree, a master's degree, a PhD. Granted, the higher you go up, the fewer people have them. But the point is, lots of people have your degree. And one of the things that really makes a difference in you getting picked, one of the things, there are more than one, but one, you getting picked versus another person getting picked is the relationships you have. And those relationships, you know, are exposed all over the place. You looked at my LinkedIn profile, you can quickly see who I know. And that drives credibility right away, right? So it's like, oh, Ed's connected to these CEOs or to these CIOs or to these other people that you know. Maybe you may not know me, but you may know people that I know. And so I would just share with you, in addition to seeking the degree, the certification, really evaluate who you're connected to and invest in your relationships.
There's nothing controversial about that for sure. That I call that parallel processing. You got to pursue the formalized pathway as well as being able to build and get those opportunities too. But sometimes when you know, for example, I'm just going to play off that a little bit for a scenario like A+ certification. If I was coming out of high school and I participated in, let's say, Genesis Works, or maybe I just got the A+ certification on my own, met schoolmates and all that, but I didn't really have any professional friends to able to get out and network, or maybe I applied for internships and they didn't work out. However, if I get that A+ certification and then I can get that help desk job, then that help desk job, answering the phone or maybe going out to the desk to help troubleshoot, we also have to figure out a way where you need interpersonal skills, right? Because there's a whole series of skills. Just because you want to be a chief architect, you have to find different levels of mentors along the way. You have to find and build those relationships that will grow with you. So kind of a friendly amendment, a friendly add-on to that is, you know, you were able to get those mentors and pick them for your reasons. But when you're just like starting at the very basic, I didn't even think about it. It was like, I got a job, I'm making money, I'm doing the tech thing. But I honestly did not think about, oh, it's really my relationship with these people that got me down the road. Those people like you and I, who are the senior people, we know that and we coach the students along the way. But when you're a student and you're trying to think about it, yeah, maybe it does make sense when you have to do that job. You have to go out and fix something that's maybe routine or answer the same question for the 50th time. You have to give the same passion and energy because you don't know who's on the other end of that phone, right?
Exactly, yeah.
You know, so that's where I actually figured out my relationships was because everybody that I went to help, I was doing menial stuff. When I started at 17 years old, I was literally in the mailroom counting mail so that they could figure out if they were going to invest $10,000 in, you know, an email system called the Wang. I always like to throw in the old school OG stuff. But the reality of it is every single opportunity that you have to make and build and do something positive, you can't come grumpy, you can't come with an attitude. And you just have to center yourself on why you're there in your job that you have to do, and just do the best that you can. Because I look back now, and there's a mentor when I started at 17 years old. I called him the other day to make sure he didn't get caught by the Rona, because, you know, he's probably like 65, 70 years old. And so, man, that's awesome advice, Eddie, is all I'm really trying to say. I appreciate you talking about and keeping this conversation real. We'll also have another opportunity to have you back, or maybe have you on the Altitude show. So tell me this, Eddie, we're last as we head towards the final stretch, and as the students think about different questions to send Lindsay. Well, hold on one quick second. It looks like we might have something. Lindsay, was there one career-related question, or should we ask about lifestyle last?
It kind of just had to do with education. I know you discussed the importance of, you know, building relationships, but this student wanted to know how valuable a traditional college education concerning IT is versus going to technical college, or, you know, trying to learn by themselves.
Interesting. Again, there are some jobs that use a degree as the door opener. They're just not going to let you in if you don't have a certain level of collegiate education. And so the importance of that education or that certification, again, you know, I hate to keep giving the "it depends" answer, but it really depends on what your goal is. If you're looking for a job in many of these corporate spaces, a lot of them are going to qualify you up front as, do you have the appropriate level of education? And if you don't, then you probably aren't going to get the interview. And if you do, the odds are already stacked against you. Kind of going back and replaying what I just said earlier is, the thing that might get you over the edge is, what relationship do you have to someone in that area, in that field, or someone who may know a hiring manager. So the importance is of a traditional collegiate education, bachelor degree, associate degree, versus a technical college is, what are you applying to? And what are the requirements for getting in that job? And got to look past just getting in. What are the requirements for advancing in that job? And then the last one I'll leave you with, does that match up with your goals, what you're trying to do? Your goal can be, I want to make $300,000. That's very possible. You can do anything that you set your mind to. And so you say, how do these things line up? And if you don't know, the most powerful tool that you have is a question. Ask questions. Good questions are open-ended questions. And so when you don't know, use your most powerful tool. That's in everything in life. Ask questions, and you'll get the answer you're looking for.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We have one more category of question for Eddie, and that's lifestyle. So the fun, we say the best for last, right? The fun part. So Eddie, do you have any hobbies, anything you like to do that you could share publicly? Like, what do you do with all this money that you make?
What do I do with all this money I make?
Pay bills.
No, I don't pay. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, I pay my bills. So I'll answer the question. What do I do with all the money that I make? Is I really try to invest in the future, both my future and my kids' future. And then also, I'm a big investor into my community. And hopefully the key theme you hear out of here is investing versus spending. Buying a lot of stuff, you know, it's temporary. You'll get tired of it. You'll get tired of a car. You'll get tired of a big house. It may seem like that might not be the case, but you will. It's anything you have long enough. So it's really, what am I building next? And what am I investing in next? Very specifically, I'm investing in the community and to the youth football program. So my sons play football. My youngest son is starting to play football now. I invest into my church more than just kind of paying the offering and donation. I believe my church is a pillar of the community, and I actively invest into that institution. And then I invest into my future. investments, 401ks, Roth IRAs, 529s for college. Those are all different investment vehicles that I look into to grow the money. I don't want my money just sitting still. I want my money working for me. A good book to read, if you haven't read it, is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Every dollar you have, treat like an employee. It should not be sitting around. Those employees should be out making more money.
Now it's called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. There's also a teen version as well. And I highly recommend that to put in your reading library. It will help you develop a mentality for how to be wealthy into the future.
All right. Any parting words, Eddie, before we adjourn?
I mean, I think, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to come and share and to talk to the students and everyone else who's listening to this broadcast or this recording. Remember at least two things, if nothing else. One, you don't get away from hard work. There's no replacement for working hard. And the other one is really invest in other people. It will pay off in spades down the road. I countless stories of how I invested almost 10, 20 years ago in other people, and it's coming back to help me in my current business today. You know, really find someone else to build up. You will reap what you sow. And if you sow good seed, you're going to reap a good harvest.
Well, we can't end on anything better than that. So, Mr. Edward Ferron, thank you for your time and your energy today. Thank you for joining the Power Up IT Professional and Career Talk series. And for our students online, don't forget every Tuesday, we'll be covering purely how to make you a better prepared for the workforce. We covered resumes. There's a video out there on YouTube that you'll get a link to via email. And then next Tuesday, we have Michael Wilson. He's going to recap resumes as well as talk about LinkedIn profile. As you know, we opened up the session looking right at Eddie's LinkedIn profile. And then how can you create a better online presence and get your online resume and portfolio going in a positive direction, even in high school, and it really does matter. So once again, thank you on behalf of Power Up IT, Minnesota State, Web Demos, Minnesota STEM Partnership, and Lindsay, our wonderful co-host. Thank you all and have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining this call.